Hey fitness fanatics, this is Steven with SmartFit, and today we're going to talk about the 7 Granddaddy laws of personal training. These are laws or ideas, things to keep in mind that will help you stay on track, get the most out of your workouts, save time in the gym, and overall have a better time and a happier time getting fit and reaching your health and wellness goals. So there are a lot of different plans out there, programs, a lot of different people saying all kinds of stuff. How do you know which plan or training system is the best for you as an individual? Well, these laws are designed just for you, asking that question by a guy of the name Dr. Hatfield. We'll get into that in just a moment. And here we go. Okay, like I said, these principles or things to keep in mind while you are working out week to week, month to month, were developed by a gentleman of the name of Dr. Fred Hatfield. Back in the day, he was called Dr. Squat for breaking not one, not two, but over 30 world records in powerlifting. He was a contributor, a consultant to the United States Olympic Committee. He was also the co-founder of Men's Fitness Magazine, as well as co-founder of the International Sports Sciences Association, or ISSA for short, helping train countless trainers and health consultants of their own. So he's a very wise man. He passed away not too long ago, and we do miss him. He contributed much more than what I'm able to fit into this PowerPoint presentation. But in 1987, he broke one powerlifting record in the squat. He squatted over half a ton, an incredible man. And in the 1990s, he noticed a lot of people gained more interest in personal training, not just on sports teams, but as individuals. And so he wanted to have laws set out based on research, based on experience, that point people in the right direction. He was able to identify 7 distinct laws that made sense with what he was doing in breaking all of these records and what he was seeing in research and going around at the time, and they still stand strong today. So here they are. Here are the 7 laws of fitness that will help keep you going in the right direction. Okay, so just a cursory look. I don't want to spend too much time on the intro slide here, but basically what they are, just at a glance, they are the principle of individual differences, the overcompensation principle, the overload principle. And again, we'll get to these in just a second. We have an acronym called the SAID principle, SAID, the use-disuse principle, followed by the specificity principle. And these will make sense in just a moment here. And then last but not least, the GAS principle, GAS. It's another acronym. So these will keep you going in the right direction. Try to have all of them. It's possible to have less than 100% of these principles, but all is definitely what we are shooting for here. And I would say no particular order. These are listed out. This is from the ISSA material on this stuff. Again, he founded that, so I'm using that. I've seen these listed in slightly different orders. Since you aim to have all of them, it doesn't really matter the enumeration too much. But what we would call the first one, just for the sake of talking about them, is the principle of individual differences. In my own words, that would be that everyone's body is unique. Therefore, every training program must take this into consideration. One way to think about that is you take a common skeletal structure of the legs, pretty much up and down. You do a squat up and down, hack squats, lunges, anything like that, pretty much up and down. That'll save your knees. But if you have bow-leggedness or G nuverum, you'll need to adjust your squat. If you see here, if you do a regular squat like most people do it, it'll put pressure on your knees. Not a good thing for you as an individual, so you'll have to widen that stance. Have your feet way farther apart than shoulder width, and as you'll see here, the knees have an easier time with that, just the way gravity works and pulls the weight down on them, the way the biomechanics work. So I say all that to say that every individual is an individual. Every individual is unique. So you want to look at genetics, bone structure, past injuries, past athleticism, interests, goals, and timelines. A lot of factors come into play here. So let's look at all the factors as much as we can. Not one size fits all type of program we're looking at. Also, be careful of group fitnesses. I know I'm doing a YouTube thing, but be careful of YouTube videos too, because again, not one size fits all, but individual per individual. So keep that in mind. That's the principle of individual differences. Secondly, we have what's called the overcompensation principle. Another way to think of it is the supercompensation principle. So it's not a bad thing that we are going up, over, and beyond here. And actually, we aren't doing it. Our bodies are on their own. In my own words, that would be that nature responds to the stress placed on a muscle by making that muscle able to deal with that stress. So how this would look is that your muscles at a cellular level, when exercised, are broken down at the microscopic level, and over time, let's say 48 hours or so, at the most 3 weeks, you'll have supercompensation. So your muscles won't just recover what was lost, but they will recover more than what was lost, so that they won't have as hard of a time with that exercise next time around. So again, give your body some rest, 48 hours or so. Don't do exercises day after day, or else you won't give your body time to fully recover and fully supercompensate. But this principle specifically underscores the fact that nature doesn't like to be bested too often and will overcompensate so that it will have an easier time doing that form, doing that method, doing that exercise next time around. Next up, we have the overload principle. Here it says you have to do more than what you normally do in order to normally do more. This is the last time I'll say it, but that is my own wording. It sounds like a fortune cookie statement, but it's put that way so it sticks with you a little bit better. So you have to do more than what you normally do in order to normally do more. I like this one because this builds off the last one, talking about how nature likes to supercompensate. We get nature to supercompensate by doing something called progressive overload, and that is over the course of time, you want to build up every week if you can, go up to another weight. If you can't do that every other week, that might be a little bit better because of another principle called the gas principle, where you need to go down in weight sometimes and increase the reps. But by the end of the month, by the end of the mesocycle, you want to increase the weight over time, and that's how you challenge your muscles, get bigger muscles if that's what you want, or at least stronger muscles if that is what you want. Remember, muscles eat away at fat, and so it's better to have more muscle in general than to just be on the treadmill all day long for days on end. So muscle is very compact, very dense, and so it's really hard to get big and bulky muscles. So if that's not something you're looking for, don't worry. It's really hard to get buff. You can't accidentally get buff, so don't worry about working out if you're afraid about getting buff and you want a leaner physique. We can talk about that in other videos, but at some point in time, you have to increase what you do in order to do more. And it's one of those basic tenets of the workout faith that's so basic, it really needs to be written down in order to be passed on properly. So overload principle, that about sums it up. The fourth Granddaddy law of personal training is the SAID principle, standing for specific adaptation to imposed demands, which is basically that each organ and organelle responds to a different form of stress. And so depending on what kind of exercise you do, you get a different result. You look at these two gentlemen here, Dr. Fred Hatfield on the right, a powerlifter, marathon runner on the left. Two different muscle types being developed here. The one on the left has what I would say would be type 1 muscle fibers meant for endurance, and type 2 would be on the right, meant for strength. With type 1 fibers, you see smaller motor neuron size. Now we're talking about at the cellular or even the subcellular levels. So the different organelles, the different components of the cell would look different from type to type, from exercise to exercise, if you want to think about it that way. So some exercise promotes smaller motor neuron size as opposed to larger. Some promote fewer glycolytic enzymes as opposed to greater. Those enzymes break down sugars for ready energy on the fly. And then just real quick, I won't go into this too long, but I'm very excited about neurons and how your body transmits information back and forth within itself, and this has to do with that. So the type 1 fibers have a lower axial conduction velocity as opposed to type 2 fibers, which has higher conduction velocity with the axons. The axons are extensions of the neurons. They help transmit the biochemical impulses. So when your brain or your greater nervous system tells the muscle fibers to fire, to initiate a contraction, that happens through the axon. And so with, I don't want to get into this too much, but with myelination, with an insulation around those axons, you can get greater conduction, which means faster contractions. And so these impulses are going at meters per second, very fast, but some muscle types have faster conduction velocities than others, and that it all depends on what kind of exercise you're doing, what kind of training. Some genetics come into play here, but it ultimately comes down to your diet, your sleep, and then ultimately beyond that, your training itself, what you do when you sweat. Okay, so the said principle, be careful how you work out because you'll get the result that you're looking for. Each organelle responds to just different types of stresses. So just be mindful of what kind of stresses you place on them, not one size fits all. Fifth, this is a bit easier of a principle to digest intellectually speaking, I think, because I think we've all come across this as children, but that's basically use it or lose it. If you learn a piano lesson and you don't use that lesson anymore, you don't use those scales anymore, it's easy to forget it, right? And the same happens with muscle gains, physical aspects of your body. So here it says your body keeps a constant inventory on what it needs and thus only maintains what muscle mass is needed. Another way to put that is use it or lose it. So your body doesn't like wasting material, and it doesn't like wasting it, and it doesn't like not having enough, right? It doesn't like being deficit or being in a surplus. So you have a gentleman who spent a couple summers working out, and say a couple years working out, then he takes the summer off. And it's possible for him to lose those gains, right? Because the body doesn't like having extra cellular mass, extra muscle mass that's just hanging around. And so your body will recycle it, use it for other things, or just flush it down the toilet. So that's called the law of reversibility or atrophy. That is possible. Keep it in mind. But your body does it. It keeps track of what you're doing, so you can't cheat it. Make sure you're trying to meet your goals, trying to do some of the physical at least 2 or 3 times a week. The law of specificity says that you've got to ultimately put into your training the exact thing that you're training for. Some people would say, well, yeah, I would never forget to do this, but sometimes you can be so lost in the mechanics of training, it's easy to forget to cycle if that's what you want to do, or to run if that's what you want to do, or to swim if that's what you want to do. It's easy to get lost on the treadmill or the exercise bike, but if you want to do that thing, at least by the end of the training period, you want to be doing that thing, putting all that you worked hard for as a foundation into practice, so that thing, that marathon, that squat, whatever it is you're doing, has a chance to be used and to build your muscles in that way. The general adaptation syndrome, or GAS for short, principle says periods of intense training should be complemented by periods of rest or lighter training. Again, if you know this already, great. If you don't, let's get into it further. So do not just work out and keep putting stress on your muscles without any form of break over the days and weeks ahead. This is how it looks. So you have an undulating curve of some kind, of some change, some adjustment. So usually they're thought of as week periods. It could be a few weeks long. Don't make it more than 3 weeks. It could be maybe 5 days at a time. But we'll say for simplicity's sake, and what you see commonly out there is 1 week at a time. So you have these week periods, about 7 days long or so, not too much different than that, where you have periods of intensity going up or weight going up, and periods of volume going up or repetitions. So on the heavy days or heavy weeks, you have more weight, and on the lighter weeks, you have more reps. You might think it doesn't make that much of a difference. Weight is weight, work is work, sweat is sweat. And that might be true for your doctor, saying get in shape, make sure you're working your heart, and that can do that. But if you're trying to meet specific goals, like maybe hypertrophy, getting more muscle mass, you will need these undulating periods of workouts where some weeks you're more intense than others. That's all. That's all that principle is saying. So over time, you will see an increase in your muscular growth. Again, you might be getting lean muscle, you might be getting big muscle mass, but overall, you will get those goals that you're looking for if you take periods of breaks. So if you don't, and all you do is work out, we're almost done with this. If all you do is work intensely, without taking that break right afterwards of a week or so, you will risk overtraining, which will burden your muscles. You can, all kinds of bad things. You can injure yourself. You can get into depression. You can get into simply plateauing, which would cause frustration, and then feelings of hopelessness, and then giving up on your health goals, and then losing what you worked hard for, and then your doctor's yelling at you for not being in shape anymore. So on the other end, if all you do is do this period of volume, light weight but high repetitions, you're eventually not going to challenge yourself anymore. Your body will say, okay, I get it, give me more weight. You're not giving yourself more weight up here. You just go into this zone of detraining, which is bad because you'll lose gains. You're not going to train yourself. Again, you'll get frustrated. You're saying, I've been in the gym for all this time, and I'm not seeing, I've been in the gym for 2 years, whatever. I'm not seeing any more results like I'm seeing other people around me having, people who have watched Stephen Ross's videos. So yeah, go ahead and put these principles into play, and you'll have a much happier time in your fitness journey. Okay, so that's the 7 principles. This lady has incorporated them, and I don't know if she's sprinting or doing a marathon thing, probably marathon, because she's in the middle of nowhere here. So hopefully she gets back home, but she will have all these principles in her mind, in her heart, and she will exercise them dutifully. So if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to do my best to get back with them. Again, this is Stephen with SmartFit, and God bless.